Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Biblical Monologue podcast. If you're new here, I'm Michelle Flanagan, and I'm your host. The Biblical Monologue is where we talk about living for Jesus through motherhood. And today I have with me Janelle Martin. Hi, Janelle.
Hello.
I'm really looking forward to today's topic. It's a little bit of a heavy one, but it is definitely necessary. If you're a mom, you may experience a child going through addiction at some point in your life, if you haven't already. So I will just go ahead and introduce Janelle and we'll get started. Janelle is a married mother of two grown children. She is a licensed counselor, certified IASIS, microcurrent, neurofeedback provider. That is so interesting. And she's a doctor of functional medicine, which I love that. She is the founder of the Mind Connection, which is a holistic mental health practice based in Houston, Texas, where she helps clients heal from trauma, addiction, and emotional dysregulation using an integrative mind body approach. Janelle is also the author of Losing Her, Finding Us, a powerful memoir chronicling her daughter's battle with addiction and their family's journey to healing. We will talk about that book today. With deep empathy and hard-earned wisdom, Janelle now advocates for families navigating similar paths, offering practical support and hope. Her work continues. I'm so sorry. Her work combines clinical expertise with personal experience to meet others in their pain and walk them through recovery. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. It's one of those heavy topics, but
It's a hard conversation.
yeah, very. And we hear about it in the news and I think I'm like probably most moms listening. A lot of times I think, well, that'll never affect me. Was that a place
Happens to
that
other
you were
people.
in like before you went through
Yeah,
this? Yeah,
yeah,
it happens to other
yeah. I mean,
people.
it always happens to other people. I never saw it coming.
Wow. Like,
Never.
yeah, like there's probably just so many things that probably would lead up to something like that
hmm
happening. And so there were no like red flags for you or nothing.
Not with drugs. Now, trauma and things going on that were troubling, yes. But drugs never seemed like it would enter the picture. Like I just, who thinks their kid's going to turn to drugs? I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't use drugs, and I was oblivious to it. And I really, I didn't know exactly the depth of the pain that my daughter was dealing with.
Mm.
I knew that there was stuff for sure, but I didn't know the depth of it. And even if I did, I'm not sure I would have ever thought, oh, well, she's going to use drugs.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's how our minds work as parents.
Mm-mm.
And we get blindsided with it when it shows itself.
Yeah, so you said like you kind of knew that she had some pain and some things that she was going through. Yeah, I guess
Yes.
it's like hindsight is always 2020, right? With stuff like that,
Well,
we
we had a lot with our family. I divorced her dad when she was 3. So divorce is always hard on the kids,
Mhm.
even if you do it for the right reasons. And the relationship had become an emotionally abusive one. So she was really the reason that I left the marriage too, because I didn't want her growing up thinking that relationship was okay, and and ending up in the same position that I had found myself in with
Right.
him. So I divorced him, and she doesn't remember us ever being together. So there was that element for her that may have been kind of better. Um, but I remarried about 5 years later, and she was 8. And at that moment, my ex-husband, her dad, was very upset about having somebody else in the picture that was
Mm.
raising his children, because he had moved out of state as well at the time, at that time. So he made it his life's mission to try to destroy me, but he used the kids to try to do that. And ultimately, it became more about her brother, who was 2 years older than her, and she was really collateral damage in the fight for him. Um, she was witness to all of the things he would say about me and the things that were going on, but she always got a different story from me versus the things that he would tell her. They would end up being the opposite, really, especially as she got older and started to really kind of understand a little bit more about what was happening. And so she grew up thinking nobody loved her, nobody cared about her, and nobody, she couldn't trust either one of us because she never knew who was telling the truth and who wasn't. And I never really defended myself with him because I wasn't fully aware of what he was saying, but I
Mhm.
knew there was stuff going on because my son was in distress,
Mm.
and there was a lot of tension in the home. And ultimately, when he turned 15, she would have been 13. So I think she was eighth grade. He was maybe a sophomore in high school, maybe junior. I don't know, somewhere in there. Um, their dad, sued me or for custody
Oh
of him.
my.
He sued for both kids, but it was very clear it was all about her brother and not about her. And that was really a breaking point for her at 13 years old. She did not understand why her dad didn't love her as much as he loved her brother. She didn't understand a whole lot about what was going on, and it was heartbreaking. And I knew that. I was
Mhm.
involved in all of that, and I couldn't really give her answers because I didn't know the answers, and they really weren't my answers to give her. But but I know that that was a very pivotal moment in her life, and it just didn't stop there because when the custody suit, uh, the outcome was that they stayed living with me. They didn't get to go live with their dad, and then she became the enemy because she didn't jump on the bandwagon with them and say
Oh
she wanted to go live with her dad, and the court wouldn't split the kids up.
my goodness.
And also the attorney that was appointed for the kids figured out what was really going on,
Mhm.
with the gaslighting and the lies and the things on the part of their dad. So he did not recommend that they go live with him. And unfortunately, my daughter's high school years were now both her dad and her brother were against her. So and her brother was her best friend growing up. So that was absolutely devastating. And as a parent, I mean, I knew what was going on. I could
Mhm.
see it. I knew how he treated her. I begged him not to treat her that way. He did a lot of it when I wasn't in the room, of course, or wasn't around. So she bore the brunt of a lot of abuse, and it manifested in the first time her, experimenting with drugs, as a lot of teens do.
Mhm.
Um, she really liked it because it took away all the pain.
Mhm.
And
Ugh.
she didn't know that there was something so simple that could take away her pain. And she wanted more of it, and she wanted it all the time. And that's what happened.
Golly, that had to be awful for you because of what you went through with your
Hmm.
ex-husband and,
Yeah.
with dealing with a person like that. It's like there's no winning, right? He's
Nope. No
gonna
way to
take it
win.
out on you or them or something. It
Yes.
sounds like it was just such an awful time for all of you. That had to be very difficult to go through for you to try to support your kids through that too. So that's
Extreme. Yeah, there really was no winning.
mhm. Yeah.
So you tried to do the right thing, whatever I felt like the right thing was at the time, but it always backfired. It felt like he always used it against me. He was never an actual parent with them. He didn't even live in the same state. So he wasn't there. He was the Disneyland dad,
Mhm.
the cool dad. And my daughter played volleyball for years, like really high end volleyball. And he never saw her play. Not one time.
My goodness.
Not one time.
That had to be hurtful. I know.
Yeah.
Growing up, you want your parents to be there for the things that you're doing. You
Yes.
think about when we were kids, if you were involved in anything, it means a lot when they come. So that had to
Yep.
be devastating for her to be,
Yeah.
put out that way. Now, did you know the Lord when you were going through all this? Were you a believer? How
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how did you find hope in all that? How was Christ your anchor and all that?
I grew up in church. my whole life. My mom made us go to church. We were Lutheran. I did the confirmation thing, all of that. But I didn't really know the Lord until I was an adult.
Hmm.
So that took a while. And that really was sparked when my first child was born. So my dad actually begged us to go back to church after my son was born, and have him baptized because we had fallen out of,
Right.
being churched through college in my early 20s. And I did it for my dad, who uncannily enough really only went to church with us on Christmas and Easter. Excuse me. So
Hey.
for him to beg me to go back to church actually was really a gift. And I'm glad that I listened. And I think coming from him, it meant more to me because it seemed so out of left field, but it was
Hmm.
important to him. And so we did get back in church at that point. And so, so that's where that came from. But I raised my kids in church just like I was in church. We did a lot of non-denominational stuff. We went to Lutheran churches. We've been to Methodist churches, Baptist churches. We've kind of been all over the place. Um, and thank God for that, because there's no other way I could have made it through the really hard stuff. I mean, all the things that were going on in our home, with my ex-husband, and what he was doing to the kids,
Hmm.
and then ultimately, my son left when he was 18, and we've been estranged now for 9 years. So that was incredibly hard. And then my daughter, turning to drugs to deal with her pain. So without Jesus in all of that, I wouldn't be here talking to you today for sure. I don't know that my daughter would even be alive today, quite frankly, because I feel like everything that I did in that crisis time was was led by him. I was led to to what we needed by him. It
Hmm.
was divine intervention. I can see that now. I think I knew it then too a little bit, but it was a crisis time, so it was very hard to parse it out. But
Yeah.
looking back, for sure, he put the right people and places and things in my path prior to this ever even happening, because he knew how hard it was going to be for me,
Yeah.
and that I needed to be able to fight this
Anything.
way.
That's, the Lord definitely has a way of bringing about people, and situations to help us get through hard times. And I know for me,
Or
scripture is always that one thing that, I can land on. We can always count on him. He is our rock, and, we can direct our kids to that as well. That,
yeah,
the Lord is your anchor, and knowing him is better than anything we can go through in this life. Um,
right. And handing over my daughter to him,
yes.
because at a certain point, I've done everything I can do, everything I could think of to do. And so now it's got to be in his hands. I've got to
Hmm.
hand her over to him and trust that he knows what needs to be done, because I didn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I guess that just makes me wonder, like, how did you find out that she was going through an addiction?
I was clued into her using by a friend of hers who she'd known her whole life. They weren't really close friends in school, but they were in the same grade. And it was July 4th, so it was right before their senior year.
Hmm.
And I was with a friend. My husband and I had gone to see them and spend time at their home. And I got a message from on Facebook Messenger from this classmate of hers. And not only did she explain to me why she was messaging me and that she was concerned for my daughter, and why, but she sent me a picture of her using that my daughter had posted on, I probably Snapchat or
Yeah.
something. Um, she had taken a photo of it to send to me, and I think without that photo, I really don't know that I would have believed it. I really don't. I'm I'm almost certain that I wouldn't have.
Wow.
But when you see it, when it's put in your face, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, and I think that was a God thing too, because he knew that I would need to see it probably to be able to believe it
Mhm.
and, or at least let it in, right? He knew. And, and God bless her because I think her doing that
Yes.
allowed me to save her life eventually because that was when I was clued in and it had already been going on for some time. Um, but it had ramped up. And I think that's when she messaged me that things were really going in the wrong direction. So, so I was clued in, but I didn't really know what to do with it. I was very upset, of course, and angry, and how dare she? She knows better. All the things, And so we had a great come to Jesus meeting on the porch when we got home, and you can't use drugs. You what are you doing? And
Mhm.
she cried a lot, and said she was sorry and she was sad, and said a lot of things, but she never said she wasn't going to do drugs anymore.
Yeah.
I do know that. But she wanted a dog. She wanted a counselor. We're like, we'll do whatever. We'll do anything for you that you want, basically, as long as you don't do drugs anymore. You cannot do that. So we got her a dog and I got her a counselor, but I didn't know at the time that there are differences in counselors and not every counselor understands addiction or even works with that population.
Mhm.
So the counselor that I had gotten for her was one of those that really didn't know a lot about addiction, and my daughter picked up on that very quickly. So
Oh.
that was not helpful at all. She would go to their sessions high, and it was just horrible. I didn't know that. She didn't tell me
Of
that.
course. Yeah.
She knew, and so that was not very helpful. Um, but she continued to use. She continued to do what she was doing. I could see the light going out of her.
Mm.
I could see that. I mean, there was something wrong. The clothes got bigger, baggier, and more drab. As time went on,
Mm.
she didn't comb her hair anymore. Sometimes I wondered if she was even showering. She had long hair all the way to her waist, and she would wear it up on her head in a messy bun every day. And it looked like I don't even know if you could brush it anymore. Like it just was not her. She was always a girly girl, and this was really concerning. But it was sort of a slow progression, right, over time.
Mhm.
And looking back, I see it so much more clearly than I did at the time. I just didn't want to believe it. And my husband, who's the stepdad, adored both of my kids and
That's
had a really
amazing.
good relationship with Reagan. But he would be the one to tell me, like, there's something going on. Like she's doing something.
Yeah.
She's using something. And that would make me mad. I didn't want to hear that. I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, don't tell me that about my kid. It's distressing as a parent to hear that about your child because you do feel responsible. You
Yeah.
feel like it's something you did wrong. And so it's easier for us to try to avoid that or deny that or not really go there.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, time is of the essence when you find out that your child is using drugs because if you can get them help early before they turn 18, a lot of times you can avoid 10 years of drug use before they get help. That's the statistic is if they don't get help early, it typically takes about 10 years. So that is terrifying
Yeah.
to think about. Of course, I didn't know that then, but her spiral was so quick that it allowed us to intervene before she turned 18, which I think saved her life for sure.
If she was fooling the counselor, had a family member that did that too, so I kind of understand that. And
Yeah.
trying to keep it from you. But you guys saw this stuff happening, like you saw the downhill. Like, how were you able to intervene in a way that she would respond to?
I still
or
didn't know
did
anything.
or did you just have to say that's it?
I did eventually, just after Christmas that year, so about 6 months later, um, I caught her using for the second time.
Mm.
It was blatant, and she didn't deny it at all. She was still high at the time, and I was very angry and told her she had to stop. And she said blatantly that she wasn't going to. She didn't want to stop, and she wasn't going to. And so I've always been pretty good with my boundaries. If I say it, I mean it. And I had said to her before, you cannot live here and use drugs. So I dialed her dad's number and I put the phone down on the bed. We were in her room having this conversation, and he answered. And she happened to have a flight out to see him. At this point, he was living in Arizona, and she was going to go to visit him before school started again. So she was leaving on January 1st of 2018. And it was 3 days before that. And I said, I just caught her using drugs again. This is what's happening. She doesn't want to stop using. I can't deal with this. I'm not having this here. So when she gets on the plane, she's not coming home. And she didn't know I was going to say that. He had no idea I was going to say it. We didn't even really
Surprise.
converse at that point,
Right.
but he stumbled and stammered a little bit. But of course, he said, okay, that's fine, and hung up the phone. And she that's what happened. I sent her to live with her dad,
Hmm.
not knowing if that was really going to fix anything, but it certainly um, supported my boundary of no drugs in my home. But also, I felt like it gave her a chance to get out of whatever crowd she was with here. And I knew
Yeah.
her friends, but she was, like I said, everything was really dark. So I think she was with other friends that I didn't know, but I
Mhm.
didn't really know. I didn't really know enough. Um, but I hoped that maybe it would give her a chance to just maybe restart her life or reset things or figure it out or whatever. And, but also at the same time, it felt like I was sending her to the devil. I had already lost one child at that point, and now I was sending the other one to him, and very unsure of what that looked like, if I would ever see her again or hear from her again. I didn't know, but I did it. And she was actually excited to go because he had never been a dad. And she thought, I've got one more semester of school before I graduate. And it's going to be more of a roommate situation. He's never been a parent,
Hmm.
so I'll do what I want to do. He'll do what he wants to do. And we'll get through this and I'll graduate and I'll go on about my life. And she had planned on never talking to any of us ever again.
Wow.
So that didn't happen. Within 3 months of being with her dad, things got much, much worse. And it came to a crisis point by March, and I had to find treatment for her at that
Wow.
point because she was running away. She was uncontrollable, and that was a side of her I'd never seen. She was never like that when she was with us. But being with him made it 100 times worse.
Oh, wow. So she
Yeah,
had to switch schools and all of that.
all of that
Yeah,
in
like
the
in
middle of
January.
senior year.
Your senior year, no less. So you'd
Yes,
think like normally kids wouldn't want to go through that kind of a change,
right.
but the addiction, sounds like that kind of was ruling her life and she just saw it as an opportunity to keep doing what she was
Yep.
doing, which I guess she did. Now, did he communicate with you during those 3 months? Was he like, hey, like, this is getting really bad? Anything?
He communicated with me because I forced him
Yeah.
to. I was still the mom and
Hmm.
I was still involved in her life. And I talked to him on a weekly basis, if not multiple times. I would call him and we would talk, and he would talk to me. But every time we talked, everything was fine. Everything was great. She was doing great. He never said I was the problem, but I can extrapolate that I had messed her up. So he was fixing her. She was doing great. She also said everything was fine, which of course she would say that.
Hmm.
Um, but what I didn't find out that it wasn't fine until the very end of that 3 month period when things came to a head and he called me crying. And then it all came out that it really wasn't okay. She was using, she was blatantly disregarding any rule he tried to set in his home. She was not coming home. She was running away. He had to call the police.
Oh my.
They got in a physical altercation. She told him how much she hated him and just let loose on him. And I mean, it just got horrific. And here I am in Texas, they're in Arizona, and I'm trying to play referee between the two of them, and then also try to figure out what's really happening here and what do I need to do? Because she wanted to come home at that point, but she was still using, and I said, I can't have you here, but he couldn't have her anymore because he was afraid she was going to put him in jail.
Right.
And because she was desperate enough to not want to be anywhere near him. And so he was afraid she would say something that he had done to her that he hadn't done,
Right.
and really caused problems. And I don't know if she would have done that or not, but he really was afraid of that. And she was adamant that she was running away. If she couldn't come home, she was running away. And that's not a really great thing for a 17-year-old girl she's all of 5'3" and 100 pounds, and
Right.
yeah,
Not a
you don't
safe
want
world out there.
to
Right.
know. And she's using drugs, and
Yeah.
who knows what else would have happened. So it was very much a crisis point at that time, and I had to Google treatment centers for a 17-year-old. I didn't know anything about that. And how do you know which ones are good and which ones are bad? And
Exactly. Yeah. So
you don't.
scary.
It's terrifying. You have no idea, but you need help. And how do you find it?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it
No,
anywhere. I
no, they
didn't have
don't.
friends like, where do you think would be a good place to send my daughter for drug treatment? Nobody knows. Or if they do, they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know who to call. So, so again, it was really a God intervention there, because this same treatment center kept coming up when I was searching, and it happened to be the only one that would return my calls when I would call to talk to someone. They were really responsive, and it ultimately is where we ended up sending her. But it was a program. It's called the Pathway Program in Phoenix. So it was still 2.5 hours from where they were living, and I was in Texas, so nobody was in this area. And the program is 2.5 years long. Now, you're not forced to stay there for 2.5 years, but
Hmm.
to finish the program, it's 2.5 years.
Wow.
And we went into their residential program, which still at that point, I was not buying that she was really that bad.
Yeah.
I just couldn't wrap my mind around that she really would need residential treatment, inpatient treatment. I really didn't believe that she was that bad, but she was. And she did that for 6 weeks, and then she did outpatient there for 8 weeks, and then she did 6 months of aftercare there.
Wow.
And we talk about all of that in the book too, what that was
Great.
like for her and what that was like for me. Because I think it's information for people to know and understand what treatment looks like. She was there almost a year, and then she decided she wanted to come home, and she was sober 10 months before she came home.
Good.
And she moved back home and kind of wanted to get back to her life. She had not graduated high school yet.
That was what I was gonna
Um,
ask, how did that affect her high school? Yeah, so she had to just go into that in March, right?
yeah,
Oh,
it
wow.
was either save her life
Mhm.
or see what happens, and see if she would graduate.
Yeah.
And then what? She would still be in the same position or worse. And that was a really, really hard decision to make as a parent, because we all assume that our children are going to graduate high school with their friends
Mhm.
and on time
Yeah,
and
of
do the
course.
right things and then go to college and, even prom. She didn't get to do any of those things. She didn't care. She was She was using drugs. She didn't care. I cared,
Yeah.
what the path that I had laid out or expected my child to follow was absolutely decimated. We were not going to get any of that normal stuff that
Mhm.
other people got. It was really, really hard. So when she came home, she did not have a high school diploma. She was not interested in going back to school still. Um, and that was really, really hard. And she ended up relapsing too when she came home.
Oh. How
So,
awful.
another big blow because you think early on, you think they're fixed. Oh, we got 10 months sober. She did this program. Everything was great. She's fixed. And there's no fixing addiction. There's remission in addiction, but there's no fixing it. It doesn't go away. And she came home and decided she didn't know if she wanted to be sober. She wasn't sure that she was really an addict, and she thought she could use manageably and wanted to be a normal, teenager at that time. Um, but she found out quickly that she couldn't.
Mm.
And that month that she was out using again was terrifying for me and really was terrifying for her too.
Wow. Because that could go south so fast. They
Absolutely.
get the wrong
Absolutely.
stuff or take too much, and we
Yeah.
hear.
And I mean, she will even say, like, there's no reason why she's here today other than God has a plan for her
Hmm.
life that pulled her through that.
That's amazing. Did you end up having to send her back to rehab,
We
or?
talked about She was willing to go when she decided she wanted to be sober again. And she called, she really at that point said, I'll do anything. I'll go back to treatment. I'll go back to Arizona. I'll go back to Pathway. I'll do whatever. And I just kind of said, hang on, let's come home. Come home. Let's talk about it because you spent 10 months in treatment. I think you have the tools.
Hmm.
I just think you're using them. And so if we let's make a plan to apply, find recovery tools here, find a support system here because
Hmm.
we hadn't done that. And let's see how that goes. And if you feel like you still need to go back, I'm all for it. Well, you can go back to Pathway, but I'm just really feeling like you need to just use the tools that you were already given. You already know what to do, just weren't doing it. So that was our plan, and that ended up working out fine. She didn't have to go back to treatment, but she did have to find support here locally,
Hmm.
and that was the challenge that was before us. But we conquered it, and we would even go to meetings together at that point, which was really interesting because we had the opposite perspective. I don't have a drug problem, but she did. And so my perspective is different than hers. And it's laid out in this book too, in that way. So you get a fuller picture of what it looks like. But going to meetings with her was really educational for me because her perspectives and her wisdom was really profound at a young age after all that she had endured and everything that she had experienced in treatment. Um, and that was a gift to me to see my daughter is really, she's grown up and she's only 18,
Yeah.
you know?
It sounds like she learned and grew through that process as well, but
Very-
giving, like, forcing her to use the tools that they gave her, you probably learned a lot too, because
Yeah.
you weren't there for the initial treatment, so you probably didn't have any of those tools. So once she found those resources, did you find that, oh my goodness, I'm getting resources too, and I can identify things and help her through things? Did you feel like that was more helpful to you having her at home at that
No,
point,
actually.
or was it worse? Yeah,
No, I
goes
mean it
either way.
wasn't. It was great actually when she came home because the Pathway program has a robust parent program.
Oh,
So
that's
I
great.
was encouraged to join that,
Oh,
although I
good.
didn't live in the States. So every Thursday night they did parent meetings
Oh.
and I couldn't attend physically because I didn't live there. So that was unfortunate. But I was given like five moms and their phone numbers to talk to after Reagan was in her inpatient. And that was the first time I got to really connect with other moms who had already gone before me. They were already in the program. And so they understood me. They knew how I was feeling. They knew how terrified I was. They knew, how difficult it was, but they could offer me their experiences and what they've learned and their stories with what they've gone through with their children. And it just, that opened the door to so much for me of just feeling like, okay, I'm not alone. There are other people who are experiencing this. There's help for us as
Mhm.
parents because they encourage the parent meetings. And one of the moms offered to phone me into those meetings on Thursday
Oh, that's
nights.
neat.
And um, And that was life-changing for me. Her counselor, Reagan's counselor, had encouraged me to go to Al-Anon here, but there was such a lack of understanding on my part about what that was, how that was going to work for my life. I went to one meeting. I hated it.
Yeah.
I thought it, I mean, I felt like a fish out of water. I just didn't know anything, and I never went back. And so this mom giving me the lifeline of phoning me into those Thursday meetings, even though I couldn't see anyone, I could just listen, but I could still share. That was life changing for me. And that's where I learned that about the 12 steps and what that looks like. And they encouraged parents to even get sponsored and go through the 12 steps ourselves. And I decided early on that I wanted to do that because in order to talk to my daughter, I needed to understand what she was learning. And I've been reading books. Like every resource I could find, I was reading. I wanted to hear the stories of other people. Um, and the book that I wrote is the one that I looked for so long and couldn't find,
Hmm.
is having both perspectives. But going through the 12 steps with my sponsor allowed me to really dive into myself. And that's where my healing really started and my life changed completely, going through the 12 steps and then rebuilding my relationship with my daughter because I could then have those conversations with her. And she knew that I was trying really hard to be involved and to understand and to work on myself and work with her on our relationship. And that was really transformational for us. And then when she moved home, we had already begun that process. I think we just got excited about her being home and being together again that we forgot all of the ways that we had gotten to that
Yeah.
point was all the support, all of the tools and things that we had been using and had been, gifted with that we just kind of let go of, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But relapse can sometimes be an essential part of recovery because it can teach you, number one, that you don't have control over substances, and number two, that the danger is always there,
Hmm.
and you either feed the good or you feed the addiction. And so it's a constant effort to make sure that you're making the right choices in life and using your tools all the time. And the 12 steps is absolutely a lifeline for every person out there. I don't care if you've experienced addiction or not. It is a way of life. I would have never known that without doing them. And I think they should be taught in school, quite honestly. So
Wow.
if you live out the 12 steps, you will have a beautiful life.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did she
Yeah.
find that she was, I'm sure that they force you to deal with your issues, I guess you could say, like you start going through those steps, and did she find that she was being forced to reconcile with her past and deal with the pain
Yes.
of that? And
Yes.
how did she respond to that? I'm sure you probably went through the same thing on your end, but
Yeah. Yeah. Her counselor at Pathway was, I think, the perfect one for her. She was very tough. And but at that point, my daughter was very tough as well.
mhm,
She was not letting anybody in and she was not letting any walls down. So to break through that took a lot of effort and a lot of, um, I don't know, kind of meanness,
mhm.
but in a loving way. And she credits her counselor for saving her life because Marilee is in the book, and she was able to break through with Reagan and begin the process of healing for her. And Reagan walks through that in the book too, of what that looked like and how that manifested for her. But she worked on herself. A lot of times in treatment, you're really working on the addiction part, and you're not working as much on the trauma
Mhm.
stuff. Um, like some of that was worked on and it was brought up and all of that, but the real work happened after she came home and she was ready to take a look at her relationship with her brother and her relationship with her dad and how those relationships had affected her. And she sought out counseling. She did brain spotting. She really took the reins on that. It wasn't ever something that I forced on her because you just can't force that on someone. They have to be ready and willing. And she took the reins and was ready and willing at certain points throughout the last 7 years.
Wow.
And I'm really proud of her for that because that was really hard to
Mhm.
do. And she was doing it at 18, 19, 20 years old.
That's
And,
very young.
but it has manifested really well in her life. She's very successful. She's very happy. She's 6.5 years sober now.
Wow.
And she protects her sobriety very well
Good.
and fiercely, actually. She keeps her circle small, but she actually came and asked to work with me 3 years ago, which, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that would have seemed like an impossible thing. So we now are business partners and we work together, and she helps people with her bright light and her counseling skills. And she's also a microcurrent neurofeedback provider. And and she's getting her bachelor's degree, which she never thought she would go to college. So she'll
That's
graduate
amazing.
next spring, and she plans to get her doctorate, and I hope she does. But I mean, it's just been such a transformation for both of us, and our relationship is, I don't know, maybe one of the strongest, I think, mother-daughter relationships out there, but it's very much adult adult. I do not parent her. She does not need me to parent her. And I noticed that when she was 18 and came back from Pathway, that parenting her was not what she needed.
Mhm.
We needed to find ground as more equals than the parent-child relationship. And I think we've done a good job of that. I've had to let go and let her figure things out for herself, even when I didn't like what I was seeing, but that's okay because God was always there. And she always ultimately, so far, has made, come out on the right side of things eventually. But she's done the work,
Wow.
and it's been hard.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, just
Yeah.
for out of curiosity and for our listeners, could you explain just briefly what microcurrent neurofeedback is? Like, how does that work?
Yes, that's my favorite thing. I call myself a brain healer because this was the first modality that I got hooked up with after Reagan got sober. And I was able to treat her with it when she was 6 months sober that second time. So it is, neurofeedback's been around a long time. It's been around since the 60s, but this is a newer type of neurofeedback that is actually more effective in less time. And so it's less expensive. But it elicits a tiny microcurrent of energy into the brain and helps the brain to rebalance and reset itself.
Hmm.
It is imperceptible to the person, so it's kind of like a spa treatment for the brain where the client doesn't have to do anything, but sit there and relax and let the energy do its work. And when your brain is functioning optimally, which is what this does, things like that might cause you to use drugs like anxiety, depression, PTSD, insomnia, headaches, all the things tend to get much better or alleviate.
Hmm.
And because the brain controls everything, right? So it's done in a series of sessions, averages 15 to 20, to help your brain open up stuck pathways and function well like it's meant to. And that's what we do mainly. And then we add a counseling piece for trauma and things like that. But the ISS microcurrent neurofeedback has been life changing for so many people, and it's our favorite thing to do. And that's what I founded the Mind Connection on. But then determined that for whatever reason, this modality, I tried to find counselors to work with me because it fits together really well with people who have trauma, because it won't erase your trauma, but
Mhm.
it definitely will help you be able to process it and deal with it much easier. And but I couldn't find any counselors that didn't feel threatened by it, or I don't know, for whatever reason they didn't want to work with me. So I went back to school and got my master's degree and became a counselor myself. And
Wow.
so now I don't I don't need to look outside of our own practice for all of that. So and then we got certified in brain spotting because that helped her so much. And then I became a doctor of functional medicine, and I just continue to grow and expand our offerings here. Um, in a natural way.
Hmm.
Because I have a background in addiction, I am very against pharmaceuticals. So putting anything into your body that isn't natural. So that's the premise of what we do here. That's why we call it holistic.
Hmm.
My daughter can't take any sort of pharmaceuticals because she is an
Because
addict,
of the,
and those are not good for her. So we help people get off medications or avoid having to take them by offering a whole natural health store in our office, plus nutraceuticals that function naturally in the brain to help the brain function better, as opposed to things like antidepressants and benzodiazepines and things like that.
or since you've been doing that, that's so amazing that you went back to school, by the way, to get your degree in that. What an incredible,
I did not want
I'm
to.
sure.
I
No,
didn't.
like I've had
Mhm.
enough school, right?
Yeah,
No more. But
yeah.
what is the most common mental health area that you find people are coming to you for treatment in? Is it addiction, or are there other things that are sort of popping up that you maybe didn't
Mhm.
think would, or
The biggest thing right now is anxiety and depression.
kind
And sadly, it's in our children.
yeah.
And we see a lot of kids because our modality is safe for children. But that's the heartbreaking thing, is so many kids are suffering with anxiety right now and depression because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
And that is sad. But we do see a fair number of people who are trying to recover from addiction, and those are my favorites. Um, but we'll see people for any reason. So anything that might be mental, emotional, or even physical, that the brain has a part in, we can treat. So it's a wide range of things. And then usually, typically, people come to us for one thing, and then they start to get curious about why we have all the natural stuff we have in our office, and it opens the door to maybe another option for people to become healthier on an everyday basis as well. Um, and so I love that. Or we get the people who are absolutely done with all of the medication and
Hmm.
all the stuff that their regular doctors want to
Prescribed.
give them for their ailments, and they're looking for something else, something
Hmm.
better, something healing. And
Understandable. Yeah.
that's what we do, and I love that too. So it gives me a chance to educate people, but also, meet them where they are.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, is there like with the microcurrent neurofeedback, is there like a time frame for that? Is that something that you guys consider like an ongoing thing, or do you do it for like so long and then it
Mhm.
because it resets or kind of resets those pathways, right? So is that
Yeah.
like okay, over depending on the person, over this much time it does its job and then they can move forward with counseling? Is that how that works, or
Yeah. It is, excuse me. It's so amazing. So we have people who come, they get better, we don't see them again. Heartbreaking because we fall in love with our clients, but that's okay.
yeah.
But then we have people who use it as self-care too. They've
Huh.
gone through their initial, set of sessions that their brain is now functioning primarily pretty well, but they like it so much they'll come back weekly or every other week or something, just like a self-care tool, keeping your brain functioning well, because life still happens.
Yeah, it does.
We're still taking in toxins and all the things in the air we breathe and the food we eat and all kinds of things we're putting on our body or being exposed to. So it affects how your brain functions.
Mhm.
So, really, in order to keep your brain functioning forever, you would want to do this on a regular basis. I've been doing this for six years. I still treat myself. I know when I need a session and I do it. And I probably do once every couple of months for myself. I could use a little more often, but I don't always have time. And of course, everybody else is first. So that's a thing. But it really is up to the client. I mean, you can come and you get better, and then you go on about your life, and we're cool with that because we're always here. When if you need to come back, you can always come back, and we pick up where we left off or figure out what else maybe you need. So it's both.
Wow. And
Yeah.
I not to take up too much of your time, but just as moms looking at addiction, I just had a couple quick questions for you. Do you recommend, or I guess I would say, like, what warning signs would you say um, moms can look for in their own children, um, that may indicate that there's some kind of an addiction going on?
Um, all the classic signs, quitting doing the things that they love, which my daughter did. She quit playing volleyball, which was devastating. Just noticing changes in their behavior, maybe changes in the friends that they're hanging out with. Um, are they spending more time alone than they used to? That
Mm,
was a thing. When my daughter was home, it felt like she was always just in her room by herself. And she used to be a lot more involved and social, but it's hard because they're teenagers, so
yeah.
we can easily discount some of those things too, like,
Mhm.
oh, they're just being normal, it's just normal at this age. And sometimes it is, and then sometimes it isn't. So I think you really have to pay attention to your gut, and your gut instincts as to what's going on. Like, I could see the light going out of my child. I didn't necessarily understand why, but definitely knew something was wrong. And it's just a really hard thing to admit that it's
Yeah.
drugs and then to know what to do about it. But there are programs for adolescents out there. Please reach out to me. I can direct you to one of them. They're all across the country, and they are effective. So,
Oh,
there is an answer to it, and I think a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that, and I didn't want to send my teenager to a program with a bunch of adults
yeah.
who were, already had marriages and kids and things that she couldn't relate to and wouldn't make sense for her. So if you have a child that's in their teens and early 20s, there are really good programs for that age group out there.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to be a resource. I will definitely
Mhm.
put your information in the description so that people can contact you. And, yeah, it would be so scary. This has been such a helpful conversation because I always think like, what would I even do? Who do you call when something like that happens? And as you mentioned earlier, people just don't talk about that, like,
So
or, yeah, I don't know, maybe they're embarrassed if they've already been through it, or it just, they don't want other people to know that they have been through it. But it's so helpful to hear from someone who has. So thank you so much. I will say from one mom to another for taking the time to write the book. I love that it's from your perspective and your daughter's perspective. So
hmm
that's very helpful too, to have the teenager's perspective so that, we can, see how things might impact them, how our decisions as parents impact them. That I love that
yes,
you did that together, that you took the steps
yes,
together and wrote this book. So thank you so much. The book
thank you.
is called Losing Her, Finding Us, and it's available on Amazon, correct?
Yes,
So
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Goodreads.
awesome. I will be sure to put all of those links below. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. Thank you so much, Janelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for giving a voice to this topic. It is a difficult one.
Well, it definitely needs a voice, and I'm so grateful to have found yours. Thank you so much again.
Thanks so much.
All right. Talk to you later, everyone. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.